What's up, everybody? I'm Caleb Ochoa, also known as NFL Caleb 22, and this is Betting the NFL, week number 3 of the NFL betting season. And as always, with me is my co-host Derek Weatherly, also known as DWeezy. What's going on, man?
Nothing much, ready to jump back into it. We're going into week three, getting some of the bumps out the road early. Not off to the greatest start, but got plenty of time to turn things around.
Yeah, I started out evenly in the first week, and this week was not so good. It was pretty bad actually, very bad week for me. And we will do that recap what happened in week 2 before we get into our 5 best bets of the week. Um, we'll get into that recap right now. We'll go over some numbers that happened, some significant numbers that happened in week 2, and we'll start with the away teams. They went 11-5 against the spread, um, and they're 18 and 14 overall against the spread. That's keeping with the trend of road teams doing better in recent years. Home field advantage slowly decreasing. Favorites 9-7 against the spread. Not too much of a trend there. Pretty even there. Road favorites, 5-1 against the spread. So really good on the road favorites there. 10. It really switched on the over and unders this week. 10 overs, 6 unders. A lot of points scored. 14 overs, 18 unders. But that's most cases. There were so many unders in week 1. So there's not really a trend going either way. We'll have to see and continue to wait and see what it's leading toward, whether it's more points or less points, or how the odds makers will adjust. But any of those numbers stick out to you, DWeezy?
I really like the road home, or excuse me, the road favorites record. I'm gonna go a step further than you. Home field advantage is dead, folks. Like we've said before, outside of maybe three teams in the league, maybe four, home field advantage is really an illusion. Not to say that teams won't have, sellout crowds and things of that nature, but not as consistently as we would see in the past, and certainly not to the veracity that we would see out of crowds in the past. So, I think that comes into play. And also, a lot of these teams, travel is a lot more easier on players nowadays. It's, yes, it's still a trek getting cross country, some of these, long trips, but it's nothing compared to what it was, say 25 years ago. So, the ideology behind home field advantage, it's gone. And so, you know, I think we see that reflected, directly in the road favorites basically dominating. I mean, you could pretty much bet it blind off the numbers we've seen so far with road favorites, and you're making a nice little profit. I think that's something we see continue, depending as long as the matchups line up right. Favorites coming in on the road where traditionally you would expect, at least a 3 point swing. I don't think you can necessarily say that anymore. And I do think the books are out there, hoping that people keep with that old school mindset, and that can really be the difference between the way some of these scores land on the spread. A 7 point game. Well, if you're looking at it, you know, oh well, the home team's the underdog, so they're getting 3 points. So this should be more like 10. Isn't necessarily the case. So where traditionally you might have, possibly gone with that road favorite -10 or something to that, or excuse me, -7, that number could actually be closer to a -4 or 5. So the idea that home field advantage still exists, if affecting the number, like I said, outside of a handful of teams, I don't think it exists anymore.
Yeah, I mean we've been talking about it, for, that past couple of years, but now it just seems like so much the other way. The trends is just going on towards the away team. So yeah, I think that's just gonna be the way it is until the odds makers, of course, adjust like they always do. They always find a way to adjust and give back and screw us all. But We'll get into our records of the week. Like I mentioned earlier, I sucked. My record was just 1-4. Um, one win. Best, obviously, my best pick is my only win, and that was with the Bucks plus 2.5 at the Texans. Um, you know, I had to sweat it out. I was about to go over, and then they really made me sweat it all the way to the end. But they rallied back in this game, like they did in Week 1, and they pulled it out. Baker pulled it out, but he had a great last drive there to win the game. The running backs played well as too. Just I wish they would get going sooner because I bet the Bucks 2 weeks in a row, and they made me sweat it out for 2 weeks in a row. I just wish they would get going sooner and have more dominant victories. I plan to keep betting them. That's why I say that. I plan to keep betting them going forward because I like this team. I think they're a good team. They've been winning me those picks, so I still like them going forward. Just to hope I don't have to sweat it every week.
Yeah, I definitely think with what we're seeing out of the rookie wide receiver they drafted from Ohio State, there might not be as much drop off with the Buccaneers as people thought. You know, a big question with that team was going to be how do they replace Chris Godwin? And 2 weeks in, we see the answer to that replacement. Um, going into my record from last week, another rough week, 1-4 again. You know, all the way up till the last game. Chargers with Herbert over 1.5 touchdowns. Of course, get it in the first half, but then nothing in the second half. So thank my stars. Got that two plus or that passing TDs with Herbert. Able to cash on one. You know, sick looking at the box score for the Cardinals Panthers game to see um, with Kyler Murray, his Russian prop. I bumped up the number a little bit. Chasing that plus money. He falls 5 yards short. That's a tough one to eat right there. But yeah, I see some good value out in some of these matchups this week, and we're gonna get into these markets and see what we can find.
Yeah, we talked about. I talked about my good. I had to talk about my bad. There was a lot of bad, but the worst one was the Bills at the Jets. I took the Jets plus 7. This was one of my overreactions. I didn't want to overreact to Week 1, and damn it, did I ever with the performance that Justin Fields did in Week 1. I thought he could build off of that. Maybe he was progressing as quarterback. No, he wasn't. He's really bad. Just like I thought he was going to the season. That's why you don't overreact to Week 1 because you lose you lose money on it. Um, I thought Bills would, come out there a little exhausted from, their big emotional win in Week 1, and maybe be a little overconfident going against the Jets, and maybe the Jets get a backdoor cover, but they just completely got dominated, and yeah, that was a pretty awful pick there.
Yeah, I think you were pretty much done for when Fields went down, and I saw that he's still in concussion protocol, so he won't be out there this Sunday. Could play an interesting factor in some of the odds out there when looking at the Jets this week.
All right. Before we get into our week 3 bets, we'll say what's up to my dad. He says, "What's up, guys? Make me some money." Well, I mean, we didn't do a good job last week, but we hope
We're
to
working
do a
on it. We're
better.
working on it.
We hope to do a better job this week. Um, we learn from our mistakes and try to get better at it. But I also want to mention that if you guys can go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. If you really want to support us, you can do that with any type of donation or joining our Patreon or our Ko-fi, our coffee, whatever. And the links are in the description down below. So join if that does suit you. We very much appreciate. We very much appreciate you for watching us. Even though we've had some lousy picks, this past week. But we're here to keep trying, and we'll keep trying to make you money. So that's what we do now. Well, since we both have bad weeks, I was expecting to hand it off to you first because I did so bad. But considering you did just as bad, I'll go ahead and I'll take the first stab at it. Um, I'll try with the Lions at the Ravens. Ravens are -4.5 at home. Both teams coming out for blowout victories, and both are 1-1. But the Ravens should probably be 2-0. Had they hung on to their win in Week One, I think the effects of the Lions losing their coordinators will show up against the good teams, like it did in Week One. Um, and obviously the Ravens are a really good team. So I think that will be something against them. Obviously, the Ravens have the advantage at quarterback. They are home. I believe that even yeah, we talk about home advantage and whatnot, but um, I believe the Ravens will take advantage with their run game. Ravens 6-2 against the spread. Last 8 games. The last time the Ravens played the Lions, they blew them out, and we all know how the Ravens' record is against the NFC teams. So I expect them to cover that 4.5 point spread.
Yeah, it's hard to go against the Ravens in this matchup. You know, that offense has definitely been churning out points. We did see that, they, on the defensive side of the ball, pretty much shut down the Cleveland Browns. Now, the question is, how much does that mean? You shut down the Cleveland Browns on offense. So I think we will get a better test for the Ravens defense going into this matchup. I do think there are some concerns on the defensive side of the ball, and outside of John Harbaugh doing his John Harbaugh type things, historically the Ravens have come in underprepared in matchups that they thought they were going to walk away with the win. Now, it's hard to say how high you put the Detroit Lions. Last year we saw them make the NFC Championship. Can they do that without, the structure of the offensive coordinators that they lost? That's going to be the big question. Yes, it was nice for, to put up 52 points last week, but the question is how many points will they put up against the Ravens defense? So only -4.5. I definitely like the Ravens in that matchup. Now, I'm going to another matchup in my first play where we're looking at that defense trying to take advantage of a poor offense. We're going to Cam Ward's passing prop going under 202.5 yards, -110. Typically where you see a lot of these over-unders priced at with a lot of these props. It's been a serious struggle for Cam Ward coming into this season, week 1 and 2. I believe in both matchups, failed to record 150 yards passing, and they're putting this number at 200. Yes, Indy may not be one of the best defenses out there. We did see them shut down Miami in week 1 for whatever that's worth because, we did see Miami bounce back in week 2. And then against Denver, there's a lot of questions there about the offense with Bo Nix and things going on with Denver. So we might not have the greatest evaluation of what the Indianapolis Colts defense is in this game, but still, given the struggles that the Tennessee Titans are going through on offense, I see no reason why Indy won't be able to hold Cam Ward under this number. So while unders aren't pretty, they're not sexy, folks, but I love them. And I'm going under 202.5.
I'll be right there with you. I'm hoping, and that's a major reason why I'm going with the Colts -3.5 on the road against the Titans. Colts have just been, major surprise through 2 weeks, and it's particularly because of Daniel Jones's play. Um, just a big surprise. Nobody expected it, but it's not just Daniel Jones. I mean, it's Jonathan Taylor. I mean, he's just been awesome. These 2 games, he's run for 276 yards and He gets to go up against the number 29 run defense in the league. Um, like you mentioned, defense going against Cam Ward, that's going to be a big problem for the Titans. Tyler Warren has been really good addition for the Colts. I like him provide a lot of headaches for the Titans defense, and all Daniel Jones has to do is not screw it up. If he doesn't screw it up, I think the Colts are just playing a lot better and pretty much better in every way than the Titans. Titans are a bad team, and I think they're looking to really take the lead in this division. It's a wide open division, So I think the Colts really want to keep their lead. Titans 1-7 against the spread in their last 8 games. 0-9 against the spread at home. 2-10 against the spread in the last 12 games against AFC South opponent. So all the trends are going towards the Colts -3.
Yeah, you definitely got to be a sicko to bet on the Titans this year.
Yeah.
Now, going into my next play, we were talking about Buffalo just earlier. I brought up the Miami Dolphins. I'm going to a anytime TD prop with Coleman at plus 180. Now, we've really seen him step up and become pretty much the number one target in the pass game for Buffalo so far this season. A total of 14 targets already through the first 2 weeks, and he's brought in 11 of those passes. 138 yards already on the season, one TD. Yes, Buffalo does spread the ball around, but going up against this Miami defense, I think we expect, a lot of points to be put up on the board. That means a lot of TDs. And we're also talking about a defense that has given up 6 plays for 20 or more yards already in the past game through the first 2 weeks. And we're not talking about extraordinary teams with passing the ball. The Colts and Daniel Jones being one. I'm sorry. If your defense makes Daniel Jones look like a superstar, you might be the problem. So, Buffalo coming in against a team that they've dominated traditionally over the years, I definitely like you could probably go with a couple different receivers, maybe tight end Kincaid, but I definitely like the touchdown markets for the receiving core in Buffalo, and going with Coleman in this game at plus 180.
All right, I'll get to my third pick, and I got the Packers -7 at the Browns. Um, I think the Packers are playing the best football right now, probably in the league. And against the Browns, I think it's pretty clear that they'll win. Only question: will they cover? -7, not too big. It's not double digits. Under double digits. Obviously, the Browns just got blown out by a lot more than that um, against the Ravens, and I don't see why that'd be any different this week. It's another really one of the tougher teams in the league with the Packers, um, and this the Packers get a lot of pressure, as we've seen because they got Michael Parsons. Which, really hate
I
that.
mean, just some guy named Micah Parsons.
Yeah, and that's gonna be bad news for an old Joe Flacco to go up against. Um, Browns don't even have a great run game to really lean on. Packers dominate 7-3 against the spread last 10 games. Cleveland 1-7 last 8 games. So, I mean, I think this one's pretty cut and dry. I mean, it's not too big of a spread. I was expecting even more, but Packers -7 that's reasonable.
Yeah, this Packers team, it feels like a death by a thousand cuts. There's no one piece that's really going to take a lot out of you, but by the end of the game, you're done. I mean, whether it be through the pass game, through the run game, you know, pretty much a multi-head weapon at the passing game with you got Dobbs. I'm I'm forgetting the other wide receiver's name.
The one that's hurt.
Christian. No, no, no. Reed's hurt. It's
Yeah,
Christian.
return
Starts with a W. But
Watson.
yes, um, And then you got Kraft at the tight end position. There's a lot of weapons in that passing game, so it can be hard to try and focus in on just one aspect. And then you have Josh Jacobs in the run game. You got a defense that's been improved somehow from this guy named Micah Parsons. That I mean, I'm not sure anybody's really ever heard of him, but I imagine he might have an impact or two, chasing down old man Flacco. We saw him, running like a gazelle going after Jared Goff. So we might see, Flacco end up, in the graveyard after this game if Parson gets a hold of him. He might have to call Miles Garrett, like, hey, you got a plot for me? But yeah, it's hard to go against the Packers in this matchup. And so you know, at a touchdown, like you said, it's reasonable. You kind of like that number a little bit lower, but it's not, 8.5, 9.5. You're not creeping up towards those double digits. So you can kind of work with that number. Now, going into my next play, unfortunately, betting against my Panthers didn't work out, even though they ended up still losing the game. And yes, they put up a bit of a comeback, but it was, far too little, far too late. And as I said, it hurt falling 5 yards short on a Russian prop. Just stick it in and twist it, why don't you? But they're taking on the Atlanta Falcons this week. We got Bijan Robinson in the backfield. And even though, yes, the rush defense of the Panthers actually had a good game, held the team under 100 rushing yards, something they hadn't done in 7 straight games, because in 7 straight games, the team went for at least 200 yards. So going up against one of the more, if not the most dynamic running back in the league, yes, I would say Saquon Barkley would probably be number one. Just the stronger physicality. But when you talk about the added abilities of Bijan Robinson in the pass game, he definitely closes that distance between who is potentially the best running back in the league. And when you're talking about a rush defense with the Panthers that has struggled mightily, there's serious issues and concerns at the linebacker position that makes trying to contain the running back even more challenging. And we're talking about a guy that in week one had 100 receiving yards, and then in week two had 138 rushing yards. So there's multiple ways he can attack this team. If you look at the touchdown markets for him, you're seeing a big minus number just for one touchdown. I saw it around minus 185. So why not get crazy and go for two? Coming in at 2 touchdowns for Robinson, plus 295, drastically lower than you'll see from most players out there. Typically, where you're talking about 7-1, 8-1, something, a nice, real juicy number. But the fact that this number is so low shows you that the books recognize the possibility of this occurring. And we're talking about a defense that has struggled like the Panthers defense. And with their offensive line worries, you could see the offense of the Panthers out there less, meaning more touches and more potential carries for Bijan in this game, just by the nature of the beast from the offense being out there more. So, yes, it is a bit of a stretch going for 2 TDs, but like I said, given the numbers, given the matchup, given the circumstances, I really like, Bijan, let's find the end zone 2 times, baby.
That's pretty bold. And it's being bolder going against your own team, but
I mean, if anybody would know my team, it should be me. So, if they want to prove me wrong, go out and somehow find the W. Okay, but I, I gotta stay true to what I'm saying.
all right. I get to my fourth bet, and that will be I'm not going to go against my team. I will go with my team, and I'll take the Cowboys plus 1.5 at the Chicago Bears. And, I may have lost last week with the Cowboys not covering, but this time they're not the favorite. They are the underdog, slight underdog. But again, like last week, I'm not betting because of the Cowboys. I am betting against their opponent in the Bears because of the way they've been playing. I mean, they're just not good. I mean, they've been pretty bad, and specifically because of Caleb Williams, they've been bad. who just hasn't looked like he's really progressed at all from his rookie year. And I know that the Cowboys defense, it's not good. I mean, it's pretty bad. But uh, the one advantage they do have is that Matt Eberflus did coach the Chicago Bears last year. He did coach Caleb Williams. I would think he knows a little something of
Well,
how
I
to
mean,
staff.
he was there in Chicago. I don't know if we can say he did much coaching.
No, well, he was there. At least he knew, some weaknesses and some strengths of Caleb Williams and how to scheme up some stuff to try to stop him at least. Um, so I think that'll be one advantage that we have. It may be high scoring again, but we've shown that we can win those kind of games, and the Bears have shown that they can't win a game at all. So I like if all the Cowboys have to do is win the game, then I'll bet that.
Yes, I mean that's really the good thing going for you. I mean, close to pick 'em. I'm surprised it's a plus number. I would minus 1.5. I could see that. Um, but I think a lot of that is because of how badly this defense has played so far this season, and that's exactly why I'm going to Caleb Williams over 236.5 pass yards in this game. Don't need him to win, just need him to throw the ball. So, you know, from what we've seen out of this past defense with the Cowboys, you know, the same way you're betting on the Cowboys, more so betting against the Bears. Well, I'm betting on Caleb Williams, betting against the Cowboys' pass defense. A lack of pass rush. I wonder why. It's almost like they had somebody there that was just a pass rush monster, and now he's gone. But hey, you got Jadeveon Clowney, so maybe things they won't be like they were, but they might not be as
How
bad.
was he with the Panthers? Oh, did he do?
Well, I actually heard a few things. The way he was utilized in the scheme might have minimized his production some because we did see in his first year, I believe he had close to, if not double-digit sacks. Um, but then in year two, it felt like a drop off. But I did hear some statistics where about half of the plays he was in, he was dropped back into coverage. More scheme wise because of how Evero runs the defense. So I'm not sure if year two could give you an accurate reading. Still has the motor, still has the ability to get out on the field. I won't say he needs to retire. Um, maybe lost a step or two over the years. I mean, he's getting a little long in the tooth, but my con- my concern would be how game ready is he? Does he need a week or two, maybe a couple weeks to get up to speed?
Well, he'll be in
But
rotation, so I don't think he'll like play the every single snap.
yeah, that sounds like something Micah Parsons would do. But
He was
yeah,
playing every snap. That's why he got worn down at the end of the season.
I love how they came out. Oh, he's got back issues. In game one, he's just out there rocking it like, yeah, back issues, folks.
Mhm.
But yeah, um, like I said, this is Ben Johnson's moment to shine with Caleb Williams. Go out here against a bad pass defense and show us what he can do.
All right. For my final bet of the week, I have the Arizona Cardinals plus 2.5 at the San Francisco 49ers. Divisional game, two and 0 teams, and one is playing with their backup in Mac Jones, and Mac Jones may have had a good week, good game last week, but it was against the Saints, and I'm not going to overreact to one good performance like I did with Justin Fields. A bad quarterback is still a bad quarterback, and he's proven that he's not a good quarterback. So I'm going to stick with that. Um, Cardinals are the healthier team going into this game. Obviously, 49ers have their injury problems. Starting with the quarterback, but it's also their weapons as well. The Cards haven't had haven't beat anyone either. So I'm not going to say like they're world beaters, but I just don't trust the 49ers right now. I think they're a little bit of fool's gold, considering they are the 49ers. Cardinals 9-4 against the spread last 13 games. 49ers just 3-8 against the spread last 11. 4-12 against the spread last 16 games at home. So I think the Cardinals get it done and outright upset them.
Yeah, I mean, these division games are always a bit of a challenge to handicap. You definitely expect a lot closer games, at least traditionally. And I think we saw that a lot last year with the Cardinals. They proved that they were a team willing to go out there and fight and try and scrap with anybody. Now, that didn't always work out their way, but we saw multiple times last year them play upset to a lot of people. And with a 49ers team that's banged up as badly as they are, backup quarterback going out there, um, you know, you'd like to think they have talent on offense to walk away with the win in this game, but honestly, you just don't know what you're going to get from that quarterback position. Will they get pressure on Mac Jones? We saw, this last week they were able to get pressure on the Panthers in that game, and I think if you get pressure on Mac Jones in this game, you'll be able to force the hand a little bit, and that definitely plays into the Cardinals, potentially walking away with the win. Now, moving to my last play, we saw this guy tear it up in week one, a bit of a drop off in week two, but back to fading bad defenses. I'm going with the Pittsburgh Steelers and Aaron Rodgers over 1.5 passing TDs in their game. Now you're gonna find it around plus money. I was able to find that plus 102. It's gonna be right at even money, maybe a shade or two to the plus side, but this is a Patriots defense that struggled to shut down a lot of number one wide receivers. If you look at their first game, even though it didn't translate to many passing TDs, they made Geno Smith look more than capable at the quarterback position. You had Brock Bowers go over 100 yards. You had Jacoby Myers almost rack up 100 yards. You had multiple other receivers with, I believe, 50 or 60 yards, and you saw almost a carbon copy in their week two matchup. And now they're taking on Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers, who in week one showed they can go out and provide a pretty impressive passing attack. So only needing two passing TDs in this game, still getting that plus money. Definitely like the matchup, like the odds, and so I got to take the play.
All right. That's all my bets. If you have any last bets that you want to go ahead and throw out there.
Not at the moment, but like we touched on at the beginning of the episode, I think something to seriously watch out for is the road favorites. Not to say regardless of the matchup, but if we see it continue the way that we are, it's almost a play that you make blind. It doesn't matter who's playing who. If we got a road favorite, you might have to jump on it.
All right. Well, that is our show. We'll be here back next week, as always, giving you our best picks of the week. And you can find me at NFLKS12 on Instagram and Twitter/X. You can find me on this channel on Fridays, doing good friends, better rivals, talking Cowboys, talking Giants. We'll be reviewing the Cowboys Giants game and previewing the games coming up. And you can tell everybody where they can find you, DWeezy.
Yeah, right now you can, find me right here on LGR and Good Friends, Better Rivals. Potentially, looking to maybe trying to increase my presence some as we got, a lot of sports channels, or well, sports podcasts, I should say, and as we got seasons rolling up, we got the NBA, creeping up on us. We got the NHL about to come out of their slumber. We even potentially, postseason baseball. So you might be seeing me pop up a few different places, providing some odds and angles because you don't have to be the greatest, hockey fan or follower of the sport to be able to attack and follow some of these angles and trends that exist out there. And that's the beauty of the game, because I enjoy a good hockey game. I am not a hockey fan. You know, I like watching the game. I will watch the game, but I wouldn't. I'm a football fan. I'm a basketball fan. I'm a baseball fan. I don't really follow hockey or a couple other sports, but that doesn't mean there aren't ways to attack some of these angles. Find some nice trends that are going on. So looking to increase some of the presence when it comes to the betting odds and angles out there across good friends, better rivals, and you can also, find articles on the LGR website, not necessarily focused in the betting realm, but definitely touching on some of the subjects involved with, some of the betting stories you see out there, but also some of the other stories and perspectives that you don't see a lot in the mainstream media. So definitely come check out, the website, check out the merch, check out the other shows on the channel, and make sure to hit the like and subscribe, because we're providing a whole bunch of content.
All right. Thank you all for watching. Please bet bet responsibly. Only bet what you can afford to lose. And like I always say, let's get ready to make that money.